this started. Alrighty, here he is. Here I am. Here we are. Welcome to Talking Ball with Scotty and Sergio. Sergio, how we doing, brother?
Doing good, my man. Doing good. It's a bit cold out here in Santa Monica, but excited about the NBA starting back up.
Yeah, man. We've had the preseason just get underway. Thanks, guys, for tuning into the podcast. Today we're going to be with the season 10 days away. We're starting our team analysis. We're going to run through the first 6 teams from A to C. So we've got the Atlanta Hawks, the Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, the Charlotte Hornets, Chicago Bulls, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. But before we get into that, let's talk about what's happening around the league, Serge. And to start off, let's get into some Kyrie talk. We had Kyrie the other day, got fined $25,000. So did the Brooklyn Nets for refusing to talk to the media. And he came out later and said that he doesn't have to talk to the media. They're pawns, and he'd rather just play basketball. What are your thoughts on this, Sergio? Kyrie making noise again.
Yeah, he obviously didn't read the fine print on getting paid the amount of money he gets paid. Fact is, these guys get paid a great amount of money. Well-deserved. The league has good revenue. But there's jobs that come with that. And it's not just playing basketball. It's talking to the media. It's talking to your fans and being a representative of your team. And I think it's well-deserved that they fine him $25,000. You know that actually, I think if they fine you $50,000, the player can appeal it. So I think one of the reasons they fine him $25,000 is so he can't appeal it, and he has to just pay it.
I think $25,000, in my opinion, isn't enough, especially this season where there are no fans. So the NBA relies on people watching the game, generally going to the stadiums as well to watch, but that's not going to happen. So the fans are relying on having these guys talk to the media, understand what's going on in the league, what's going on in their heads. And Curry just is something he doesn't understand. He seems to put his foot in his mouth sometimes. But, yeah, the season hasn't even started yet, and we're getting annoyed with Curry.
Yeah, he's had a lot of issues. I mean, the issues before on the podcast with Durant, when he was saying that pretty much throwing LeBron under the bus, that he's not a go-to guy in the last minute of the game.
Oh, wow.
And, and LeBron commented, I don't know if you saw that, LeBron commented last week about it, saying that he was a bit hurt. And it's fair enough. This is a guy that he was played side to side. They won a championship.
Yeah,
and now he's just turning on him.
I heard LeBron just say, and I believe LeBron when he says this, all he wanted was the best for Kyrie. He wanted to help make him the man in Cleveland, get become a better player in his career. And Kyrie Irving, once he moves past the team, he likes to throw some shade. So it's nothing new for Kyrie.
It really is nothing new. It's really nothing new. But the league's going to sort him out. He's going to start talking to the fans.
He's going to have to. He's going to have to. Well, talking about LeBron, let's move on. Also during the week, I think it's on the same podcast, the Road Tripping podcast with Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson. He came out and said that he believes he won the 2 hardest championships of all time, where he beat the 73-9 Golden State Warriors after being 3-1 down in the finals in 2016, and also the bubble. I've been thinking about this a lot. I can't agree with any of this LeBron's saying. And that's not me hating LeBron, but oh, man, you got to look back at some of the other championships teams have had. We were talking about this before, Serge. Magic Johnson, 1980.
Playing center. I mean, come on. Point guard, playing center with an injured Kareem. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about hard championships? That's a hard one. What was the other one we were talking about?
It was Bulls 98.
There's just so many. There's so many. I bet even dating back to the Bill Russell 8 championships in a row, I'm sure along those 8 championships, there was probably one that was a bit more difficult than a bubble championship.
100%. I understand the 2016 one, but the bubble, we were saying it was handmade for LeBron. He's a supreme athlete. There's no fans. He just had to go in there and do his job. There was no noise. It was LeBron's world being the best player in basketball. You should be winning that championship.
I bet you MJ would have liked 4 months off at age 35 when he was trying to win a championship.
Come back a bit refreshed, yeah. And
also Anthony Davis prone to injury, having that time off.
100%. Yeah. And the Dallas Mavericks in 2010-11 when they won. First round they beat the Portland Trailblazers, Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, a young Wes Matthews, Nicholas Batum, Andre Miller, Marcus Camby. They had some guys on that team. Then they swept the Lakers, who'd just won 2 chips in a row, with Pau Gasol, Kobe Bryant, Metta World Peace, Andrew Bynum. They beat the Oklahoma City 4-1, who are an up-and-coming team, who I think they made the finals the year after, I believe, or the year after that. And then they beat Miami. So I don't think LeBron's team ever had, it's hard to say, but the Denver Nuggets, the Houston Rockets who are falling apart at the seams, it's a big
And
call.
we have to, for the viewers that don't remember, like don't know the history of the 2016 championship, it looks really good on paper because you do have a 73-9 team who you defeated in this case from LeBron's point of view, but they got a little bit of assistance from the NBA suspending Draymond Green when the Warriors were up 3-1. So that's what, for me, that always holds an asterisk on that whole championship. I mean, look, it's a great comeback. I see where he's coming from, but there was a little help there.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move on to one of the other top players in the league, James Harden. It has been a frustrating week to watch what he's done to that Houston Rockets team, to his brand new coach, Stephen Silas, new teammates, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins. He obviously turned up to training camp 5 days late. He was pretty much posting on his Instagram all week. Where was he at the ice? Was it called the ice party in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in a few places. I heard he was in Vegas as well.
Vegas.
He was at little baby's birthday.
Mm-hmm. Continually partying without a mask with lots of people around. I'm surprised the league didn't fine him for this. Like, I understand you're one of the best players in the league, but that's such a bad look when you have one of the top players who's earning, like we say, $40+ million a year, going out there not turning up to training camp on time.
I just don't really understand how it's not some kind of how it's not fine worthy, because these guys going around in strip clubs and people do whatever they want. I'm not bagging strip clubs, but come on. We all know that no one's wearing masks and the strippers aren't wearing masks, and this guy's around strippers and he's showing up on Monday to go to training camp. Of course he can't play for 6 days. He has to get tested 6 days in a row after he showed up late.
And this is him flexing his muscle, saying that, hey, if you're not going to trade me, I'm going to act like I don't want to be here. And I do feel bad for his teammates. I think John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins are ready for a change. They both had a lot of injuries last couple of years. They're joining one of the best players in the league. They're trying to do something in the Western Conference. And I don't know, if I were them, I'd be thinking, this is our team now. I don't think James Harden wants to be here, but we'll see. He's going to get traded either as the season's beginning or a month in, but it looks like he can't be there anymore.
They might hold him. They might hold him until the trade deadline. Trade deadline, I think, is March 25th. So I think they're not going to budge, especially this might backfire on him, because they're not going to just give him away unless they get the value that they deserve for a player like James Harden.
No, I think from my understanding, the Brooklyn deal is, I think that's off the table these days. I don't know how Brooklyn can do it anyway, but sorry, Sergio.
We should talk about this. Actually, I was thinking when you mentioned that, I would trade Kyrie in a heartbeat for James Harden, and I think that would be a win situation for Houston as well.
100%. I think Kyrie's a notch below James Harden, the way he plays. I think
100%.
James Harden obviously has the ball in his hands a lot, loves to dribble, take shots. So does Kyrie, but Kyrie takes harder shots. Kyrie takes shots where if it was any other player in your roster, you'd be going, sit him. You shouldn't be taking these turnaround jumpers with a guy in your face. I still think that depending on how Philadelphia start this season, there's lots of rumors that Ben Simmons for James Harden trade is on the table. That's the trade if I were Houston I'd be looking for. You get one of the best defenders in the league, a willing passer. He can play with other guys who can handle the ball. Can you imagine DeMarcus Cousins come back 85% of himself and John Wall's 90% of himself, and you get Ben Simmons? That's an interesting team. That's a different team with a lot of guys who need to prove themselves.
I mean, I'd say Houston would be coming up on top. Ben Simmons is, 23?
Yeah. And he's one of the top defensive guys in the whole league.
He's 10 years younger than Harden. We don't know how many years Harden has left at top performance.
100%. Well, Serge, one more before we head into the Atlanta Hawks team analysis for 2021. Paul George signed a $226 million 5-year extension. What do you think about that deal? Because there's a lot of stuff been happening with Paul George recently. We've heard throwing a few slights at Doc Rivers, which I don't know. Doc Rivers, that team, I think this is all happening because that team didn't have a leader last year, and Paul George seems to like to play the blame game a lot. Thoughts on the
First
contract?
off, let's start with his contract.
Yeah.
Homie got paid well. I don't know if he deserved that much money. That's insane.
A guy that has said 3 times so far at 3 different teams, this is the team I want to be at for life. I understand you have to say that, but more times you keep saying that and switching teams.
I just don't remember a player getting paid like this guy got paid after a horrendous playoff performance. I don't remember if that's ever happened in the history of time. Obviously, the numbers that we're getting today, they've never been seen. But players getting max extensions after that type of performance, it's unheard of.
And it just trying to think of the word, but it doesn't hold in great stead for the Clippers because now you have your 2 best players understandably tied up, but at about $40 million a year, Kawhi and Paul George, they still don't really have a proper point guard on the team. Pat Beverly's not a pick and roll point guard. He's not going to set up other guys. He's a great defender, but I don't know. I'm not sure what this does for the Clippers. Obviously, 2 of the top 15 players. Obviously, Kawhi is probably the top 3.
Well, I'm guessing Kawhi gets along with him because Kawhi must have signed off on this deal. That's what I think.
100%. Everything runs through Kawhi, I'm pretty sure, the Clippers now.
Yeah. And in regards to the Doc Rivers comments, it's completely out of line. I'm just not playing
100%.
that. I mean, Doc Rivers has been a professional his whole life. Things don't work out. At the end of the day, Doc Rivers was the one who got punished for how the Clippers performed. And there's a lot of other people to point the finger at on that team, starting with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. There's big names there that deserve the blame. And they ain't getting blamed. They got $226 million. So I don't think he should be talking about what happens in the locker room and throwing his ex-coach under the bus. It's just poor value.
Obviously, in his head, he's hurt. He thinks they've done wrong by him. And he was also saying the other day on TV, saying that, they use me in a lot, like Ray Allen, a lot of pin downs, running around screens. Then they showed the stats. That wasn't the case at all. So he's got an idea of how he used to play. But you know what? Good luck to Doc Rivers of Philadelphia. He's gone into a pretty good situation there. He can't complain too much either.
Yeah, I'm happy for Doc Rivers because he went from a great situation to another great situation.
Yeah.
Maybe even better. Who knows?
Yeah, with a couple of really good young studs. But that's the news from pretty much around the league. Let's jump into the team analysis, Serge. We've got a few teams to get through today and then a few more pods to get through the rest of them before the season starts in 10 days. So let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks. Their GM is Travis Schlenk, coach is Lloyd Pierce. Last season, they finished 14th in the East at 20-47. Their guards this year are Trae Young, Chris Dunn, Rajon Rondo, Kevin Huerter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Brandon Goodwin, Skylar Mays on a 2-way contract. Forwards are Bruno Fernando, John Collins, Danilo Gallinari, Solomon Hill, Onyeka Okongwu was their draft pick, DeAndre Hunter, Nathan Knight, their other 2-way guy, Cam Reddish, and then their lone center in the team is Clint Capella. A pretty good squad to me. They really filled the gaps in their team with vets, and I think compared to that 2047, I think they're in the playoffs this year, Atlanta.
I think it's very possible. They added some great pieces. Trae Young is only going to get more spectacular this year. And it's going to be interesting to see him play with a real team because last year it was a team centered around him. We're going to see what he's made out of this year with a real team with a lot of talent.
Yeah. No vets last year, which doesn't help. So this year you have a mix of vets coming off the bench, starting. It just makes the team. You're going to learn off Rajon Rondo. Chris Dunn is a great defensive point guard. Sure you're sad the Bulls let him go. But Serge, starting lineup this year, I had tell me if you have the same as me, but I've got Trae Young starting at the point guard position, then Bogdan Bogdanovic next to him. Danilo Gallinari is starting at small forward, John Collins and Clint Capella. But I know there's a few ways this team can go. Is that what you're thinking the starting lineup is going to be close to?
Yeah, with this one, I agree with you. I think this is the route they're going to go.
Yeah, obviously injuries happen, things happen. Everyone seems to be fit for the Atlanta Hawks, which a lot of teams in the league can't say either. But a lot of those young guys they had last year who got a lot of good minutes, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins has grown. Kevin Huerter as well. Like they played starters minutes last year. They're probably not going to be starting this year, but they got some great experience, whether it's losing games or not last year, but they should be better this year.
I think Cam Reddish is a player to look for this year on that team.
They seem to have really filled out this team with a lot of good wings. And Gallinari, I think he should have a pretty easy job catching and shooting this year, creating a little bit of offense for himself. The biggest question for me is what are they going to get out of Bogdanovic? Bogdanovic, for me, the last few years at Sacramento, he was good without ever being spectacular. And I think that's what the Kings were hoping he'd turn into, a 20-plus scorer a night. Never really turned out that way, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, Bogdanovic has been bordering 15 points the last few years. I think he's been increasing his numbers year after year, but not massive increases. Yeah, as you were saying, they were hoping he was going to be a 20-point player, but he's a 15-point player. Maybe this year we can find him somewhere around 17, 18 points and help this team get to the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. And they've got a lot of guys on rookie contracts, which is a good thing to have as well if you start turning into a good team. Their highest paid player on the team is Bogdanovic. Danilo Gallinari at $19.5 million. Then it's Clint Capella at 16 and Bogdan at 18. So I think there might be a couple of trades in there for Atlanta, especially if they start the season well this year. We'll see what happens, but I think they're one of the teams to watch this year. I think everyone's going to be trying to tune in to a few of their games. I know we both have League Pass this year, so I'll be definitely tuning into a few Atlanta Hawks games.
Yeah, Trae Young's always must-see TV.
Mm-hmm. Let's move up the Eastern Conference. We have the Boston Celtics. The GM is Danny Ainge, coach is Brad Stevens. Last year, they finished the season at 48-24, which was good for third in the East. Their guards are Kemba Walker. He's injured to start the season. Peyton Pritchard, Carson Edwards, their new rookie, Aaron Naismith, Jeff Teague, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Romeo Langford, Tremont Waters is on a two-way. Their forwards are Jason Tatum, Semi Ojeleye, Javonte Green, Grant Williams. And then the centers are Taco Fall, Daniel Tice, Robert Williams, and the new addition of Tristan Thompson. What are we thinking about the Celtics this year? They've got a few new guys in, a couple of vets with Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson, and a very promising rookie in Aaron Naismith. Think they're about the same this year? A little bit better, a little bit worse?
It's hard to say. We're going to have to see how Tatum evolves. He's already a star, but we're going to see if he can carry the team further than he did last year. And it's really going to depend on how Kemba Walker plays in his injury, I think. I mean, Teague's a good substitution to start off the season, but I think the Celtics are going to go how Kemba Walker goes and Tatum go.
Yeah, after the bubble, I think a lot of people are a little bit worried with the injury history that's starting to pile up with Kemba the last couple of years. A lot of these knee injuries, and especially a guy that relies so much on athleticism. He's supposed to be back at the end of January. Tristan Thompson, I thought was a really good little pickup. They play a little different to most teams. Their centers aren't big shooters. They're good rebounders. They're good rollers and finishers. So he'll probably be taking Daniel Tice's minutes, I'd say, starting. But Tristan Thompson, good pickup. Glad to see he left Cleveland.
Yeah, I can see them kind of splitting time a bit. Because Tice, he's once he learns not to foul so much, he'll be a more solid center.
100%. The big question for the Celtics this year is how much are they going to miss Gordon Hayward? Know that he hasn't been himself the last couple of years after that obviously gruesome leg break a few years ago, but he was still a secondary or the third playmaker for that team, whether it was starting or coming off the bench, consistent shooter, a solid defender. I think they are going to miss him this year, just that really solid.
It was a big change, but I'm not so sure. I might disagree with you on there. I think they have enough guys wanting to shoot the ball in that team and enough talent. I don't know if he's going to be that missed.
And Jason Tatum, like we saw in the playoffs, this is if he can take another step up, this team goes with him and Kemba. Kemba's injury and Jason Tatum, if he can turn into a 30-point scorer a night, he plays so much like Kobe. I love watching him play. He's so silky and smooth in his footwork and
yeah, he reminds me of like more athletic Paul Pierce.
Yeah,
kind of. He's got like that smooth, like. He's faster than Paul Pierce, obviously more athletic, but he's also not super athletic.
Yeah, he's a good rebounder and a very good defender, which I think people forget about with Jason Tatum. So
yeah, massive wingspan.
So for the Celtics, with the injury to Kemba Walker, projected starting lineup I have for them is Jeff Teague, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Tristan Thompson. Think that'll be close to it? Do you expect anyone else to jump into that starting lineup?
No changes there either, buddy. Same on board.
Beautiful.
Yeah. What about Taco Fall? Just a cheap $79,000.
No, he's a lot of fun to watch last year, Taco. Especially I watched a few Celtics games on ESPN, and they're blowing a team out, and he comes on for the last few minutes in the garbage time.
They love him.
They love him, and he's a little bit like Boban in the sense that he's so big that you throw him in the paint, there's really no way to stop him. He can be a liability defensively. It's why he probably will never play a lot of huge minutes, but it's a lot of fun watching him play. And the fans love it. For your 15th, 16th guy on the roster, why not?
Yeah, for sure.
And we think they'll be close to around that third position in the Eastern Conference this year again?
Oof, they could go higher than that. You don't know. It really depends. It really depends on Kemba.
Yeah.
And it depends how they I think this team could be gelling even better this year without Hayward.
Yep.
Because I think that was a bit of an issue. Because, I don't know. There's a lot of inner problems in the Celtics that we're not all really privy to. But
I think money becomes an issue as well when a guy's on a lot of money and he's not the best player on the team at least.
Yeah, he'd be making triple what Jaylen Brown's making or Marcus Smart, which is a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And Marcus Smart plays his ass off every night. Whether or not you want him shooting 15 threes a night is a different story, but he's diving and he's throwing everything onto the ball. So let's move in. Another team that they'll definitely be jumping up this year from their standings last year. We have the Brooklyn Nets. The GM is Sean Marks. Coach Steve Nash. In 2019 and 2020, they finished 35-37 for 7th in the East. We'll go through their team quickly. We have the guards, Chris Chiozza, Joe Harris, Landry Shamet, Jared Harper's on two-way, Kyrie Irving, Bruce Brown, Tyler Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jordan Bowden, Karis LeVert. Forwards, Jeff Green, Kevin Durant, Rodions Kurucs, Reggie Perry, Taurean Prince, Timothy Lawawu Cabarro, Nicholas Claxton, Nate Sestina, and then we have Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan. That seventh, they're going to leave that seventh position way behind them this year. This team is competing for a championship, the 1 or the 2 seed for me in the East this year, Serge.
For sure. I'm hinting towards number 1. It's hard with the Bucks. Who knows? The Bucks may be first or second, but this team's hungry. This team, if Durant comes back at 100% or even 95%, this team's going to be scary.
Well, I think time makes us forget how good some of these players are when they're out for a year or a year and a half. Kevin Durant was up there as the best player in the league with LeBron, pretty much tied for a few years there. He obviously went to Golden State and there was a big commotion. He went to join a team that already won or just lost. But Kevin Durant
that didn't take away from the fact that he was probably the best player. He just didn't get the recognition because he was on the best team.
100%. And when he was the Warriors, his defense got unbelievable. He was one of the better defenders in the league. He had 200 blocks, I think, in this season, which is incredible for a guy that spent most of his career playing small forward, power forward, and now in obviously the NBA these days, you might have to play a few minutes at center.
Yeah, no, amazing increase in his defensive prowess. And on a team so talented as that, he really found time to still work on his defense. I thought it was really admirable.
Yeah, this team, for me, they're stacked. Top to bottom, they've got 10 players, not starters, Spencer Dinwiddie and who else we got? Whether it's Jared Allen, DeAndre Jordan starting, Jeff Green. They got a roster of about 10 guys who go deep, who are big, solid. This team, for me, like you said, Boston goes as far as Kemba can take them. Brooklyn goes as far as Steve Nash can control Kyrie Irving. You don't want the Kyrie that we had in Boston causing trouble, because I don't think Kevin Durant's going to like it if he's taking 35 shots a game either. One-footed fadeaways and these crazy shots. But
I think Kyrie's just going to have to be a little bit like Curry. He's going to have to step aside and let Durant be Durant. Durant's the man. I don't care who you are. Durant's your number 1 option.
You may be the point guard, but you want the ball in Kevin Durant's hands more often than not.
For sure. He's a guy who can create off the dribble. He can shoot from wherever. He's unstoppable when he's healthy.
This is also one of the teams, Brooklyn, who there's a good chance there's some trades coming. We've talked about, obviously, James Harden, but they've got some very good pieces in Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jarrett Allen. Some of these guys who are in their early, mid-20s, and they could be solid players for other teams who are looking for a third, fourth option.
In my head, Jarrett Allen's untradeable.
No, I know that Kevin Durant is a big fan or good friend of DeAndre Jordan. I watched DeAndre Jordan play a couple of years ago in Dallas. He's not a particularly good defender. He's not a particularly good rebounder. A lot of the rebounds that he does get, he's pretty much pushing the point guard off the ball just to get a hold of the ball. When you generally want your point guard getting the ball and sprinting down the court. So moving on to projected starting lineup, I don't have him in my starting lineup. I have Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, Kevin Durant, and Jarrett Allen. Any thoughts, any changes to that?
I really like Dinwiddie, but I don't know if he's going to be in the starting lineup. And I'm going to go with Allen as well, like you, but I don't know. I'm not sure if DeAndre Jordan's actually not going to get the minutes. I think the minutes will kind of be split between them. I don't really know who's going to go as starter, but I'm fine with Allen. I'd go there.
I also think Karis LeVert has to be a starter, but at the same time, he needs the ball in his hands. He's a really good small forward who can create and score. Kyrie and Kevin Durant with the ball, I don't know how much of the ball he's going to see in the starting unit. So it wouldn't surprise me if he came off the bench with Spencer Dinwiddie, and you'd be destroying a lot of these bench units for some of these other teams. And then they bring in just a 3-and-D guy, whether it's a Taurean Prince or a Jeff Green, just to fill that spot, just a bigger body. But I guess
it's going to be interesting to see how D'Antoni runs their offense.
Who, sorry? Oh, no.
D'Antoni?
Mate, we're talking about the Brooklyn Nets. Steve Nash, baby. Protege.
No, but isn't D'Antoni an assistant coach?
Oh, you are 100% correct.
So, right?
He is. But I'm pretty sure he's the assistant coach of Steve Nash in offense. Because I don't think Steve Nash is going to be a defensive coach. No offense, Steve Nash.
No. Neither of those guys knows how to run defense.
This could be the fastest offense of all time this year. But
I was hoping they were going to implement parts of kind of like the Suns offense to get the ball out of Kyrie's hands and just play faster and move the ball.
Yeah, 100%. I think Kyrie's going to have to play a lot off ball this year. And as long as he doesn't play the same way James Harden does, where you get the ball out of his hands, you don't want these guys standing in the corner waiting for shots. Move. They're so quick. Cut. Look for entries to the basket. How good is Kyrie Irving at finishing? One of the best maybe ever to do it. Putting English on it with both hands. I hope Steve Nash brings out the best. I hope he brings out the best of Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie Irving's got to play a bit better defense as well.
Something we should talk about that I think has to be mentioned was the whole debacle. I don't know if you heard about it, but over here was a big issue with Steve Nash getting a starting or a head coach job straight away and other African-American coaches being overlooked for the job. It was a whole issue over here. People were saying that it's not fair and that why he doesn't deserve it. There's people overlooked like Ty Lue, Mark Jackson. I really think Steve Nash doesn't apply for that, ex-player getting a head coach job. Steve Nash was a 2-time MVP.
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's a basketball savant.
100%. 100%. Well, just saying that, I sent you this the other day. This is what Steven Jackson had to say on Instagram about James Harden not turning up to training camp. The Rockets finally get a young black coach and you don't want to show up to camp. You don't want to play for him. How's that look? And you wonder why every time a black coach gets a job, they put him in a bullshit situation. Look at what you're doing. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about James Harden. It was a selfish thing. It's exactly what you said. People didn't think.
I respect what Steven Jackson said. A lot of stupid comments in the past, but that's not what he said there. He's on
100%, 100%. And I think 99% of people feel that way about James Harden at the moment. So we've both got that Brooklyn Nets 1 or 2 in the East this year. Again, injuries permit. Hopefully they can all stay fit this year. Let's head down a little bit further back. We're in the Eastern Conference still, but we're going to hit the Charlotte Hornets. Usually don't name the owners for all these teams. We've got to mention Michael Jordan. The GM is Mitch Kupchak, and the coach is James Borrego. Their guards are LaMelo Ball, Malik Monk, Keandre Cook, Nate Darling on a two-way contract, Devontae Graham, Grant Riller on a two-way contract, Terry Rozier. Their forwards are Cody Martin, Caleb Martin, which, just before I keep going, these two brothers, they're actually getting paid the exact same to the dollar. So I guess they can't fight about money, I'm assuming. literally $571,981.
I wonder if they sleep in bunk beds.
Maybe, just to save a bit of money. Jalen McDaniels, Miles Bridges, Khalil Whitney, Gordon Hayward was their big acquisition during the season, on the off-season, sorry. PJ Washington, Xavier Sneed, Javine Delorier. The centers are Nick Richards, Cody Zeller, Vernon Carey Jr., and Bismack Biyombo. A lot to unpack about the Charlotte Hornets. The big thing was Gordon Hayward signing a $120 million 4-year contract. I guess Michael Jordan finally got his man a couple of years late.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, this guy's getting overpaid. I really hope that in this situation, he's going to really strive, because he's going to be the man. He's going to be the guy getting his shots. There's no arguing that he is the main focal point on offense. So maybe we can get a few good years out of Gordon Hayward, and you can really see what he's like post-injury.
It's an interesting situation, because a lot of these teams they're lottery teams, you don't generally want to get a vet to bring you that high back up the standings, because the Hornets are in a position to scrape into the playoffs this year, because we have a play-in tournament again with the shortened season. So do you want LaMelo, these young guys, the next couple of drafts, from what I'm hearing over here in Australia, I don't know what you guys are hearing over there, but they're supposed to be stacked. There's some good young players coming through. So I think the next couple of years, you want a top 5 pick. I think Gordon Hayward he pushes you out a little bit. He gets you out of the position. You might get a 10th pick, something like that, and you're getting another guy to lead your team into the future.
I think it says a lot. They might have a lot of belief that LaMelo Ball is a generational talent. I mean, he might be. Who knows? So I think they also want to have some winners around him, and not have a bunch of players who, haven't been to the playoffs, guys who are inexperienced. And if he's surrounded by a couple players, it can rub off on him. Rozier has some playoff experience. Hayward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Terry Rozier, scary Terry with Boston a few years ago. He's on just under $19 million. He's got a couple of years left in his contract here. And they've got a funny team, Charlotte, for me. They've got a couple of good players. Obviously, we don't know how LaMelo is going to be. He did okay here in Australia playing for the Illawarra Hawks. He had a lot of turnovers. He didn't shoot particularly well. And the players are pretty big over there in the NBA as well. He's going to get muscled off the ball, because he's going to get probably matched up with some shooting guards and small forwards, because he's not your regular Devontae Graham style of point guard, a 6'1" small shooter. He's a bigger guy. He can rely on a few other skills. But this team, for me, they're really top heavy. They've got 6 guys who are good, and then I struggle to know too many other players on this squad.
Yeah, they're lacking a few. They're still a team that can move some pieces, I think.
Yeah, I've heard rumors. I don't know why you want to do this, but they're one of the teams who are maybe going to trade away a couple of young pieces for maybe Al Horford. I think that maybe moves you up into like the 8th seed or something, but you're stuck for the next couple of years owing Gordon Hayward and Al Horford a couple $100 million.
I think at this point they start with this team for the beginning of the season, and they see what's what. Maybe they can make some noise around the trade
deadline. Yeah.
The trade deadline.
Saying that, though, so as I was putting together these team lists, Serge, finding out how much all these guys are making, I cried a few times. The Charlotte Hornets still owe Nicholas Batum $27,130,434. So I believe their idea is to stretch it over the next 3 or 4 seasons. So something like $6 or $9 million a season. And as a team that's probably not competing for a championship, you don't need every inch of space in the cap. But he's now earning $2 million at the LA Clippers, and Charlotte are still paying him.
Beauty of the NBA, guaranteed contracts.
That was I can't remember. I think that was 2015 or 2016 where we had some crazy guys get paid in that offseason.
Yeah, he was one of them. But Tuma's a great player, but he got paid when he was at the end of his prime.
Yep. So let's move into the projected starting lineup. I've got LaMelo Ball starting alongside Devontae Graham. I've got Gordon Hayward as a small forward, PJ Washington, and Cody Zeller, who is on a cheeky $15 million this year. How do you think? Any changes there, Rozier or Bismack Biyombo?
Yeah, I mean, was it Rozier starting last year?
Yeah, I can also see that Devontae Graham playing more of a sixth man role, coming off the bench and just getting the green light to take 10 shots from beyond the arc and being a little scorer, maybe getting himself into that sixth man voting.
What was your deciding pick over PJ Washington with, let's say, Miles Bridges?
It was close, but PJ Washington had a really good finish in the second half of last year. He seemed to be a 15-10 guy for the second half of the season, a solid defender. Miles Bridges, to me, has worked really hard the last couple of seasons in the NBA, and he probably deserves a starting spot as well, but I just can't see him starting over Hayward.
Gotcha.
You probably need that extra bit of ball handling there as well.
Over Hayward? Yeah, no way.
No way. You're not paying a guy $30 million a season to come off the bench.
No.
So we had them last year, 23 and 42. I think they'll be a little bit higher this year. We've got 71 games. So if they can squeeze into those the playoff games, I think that'll be a good result for them. Or even the playoffs. You get LaMelo Ball and a couple of these young guys some experience in the playoffs, playing against most likely the 1 or 2 seed in the East. They'll be better for it.
I think this team needs to win 35 games at least.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not too sure if they'll be able to do that this year, but we'll see how we go. I'll have my eyes on the Charlotte Hornets because if they're losing, there are always some great MJ memes crying out there. Serge, here we go. Let's talk about your Chicago Bulls while you're sitting there wearing a Los Angeles Lakers jersey. Which for all our Chicago Bulls fans are probably sitting there hating you right now, but you got to represent where you are sometimes, eh?
It's a Kobe jersey.
So last year we had the Chicago Bulls. They finished with 22 and 43. They were 11th in the East. Their GM is Mark Eversley, and their new coach this year, Billy Donovan. Their guards are Devin Dotson, who's done two-way, Kobe White, Denzel Valentine, Thomas Satoransky, Adam Makoka, who's on two-way, Chandler Hutchinson, Zach Norval, Ryan Archidichian. I struggled. Did you know how to say his name? Archidiacono. Zach Levine, Garrett Temple. Their forwards are Laurie Markkinen, the rookie Patrick Williams, Daniel Gafford, Otto Porter Jr., Thad Young, Noah Vonleh, Wendell Carter Jr. can play a bit of center as well. And the centers are Luke Cornett and Cristiano Felicio. Now, I'm going to let you take over for a lot of this, Serge, but there's a pretty...
Well, first off,
yeah.
I'm excited for this year with the Bulls because we got rid of Garpax.
Yes.
The president, manager, gone. And also Billy Donovan. I think he's a great coach. I think he did great with Oklahoma. And,
100%.
you know, he's an exciting addition to the team. I'm excited for some fresh blood in there because I think last year with our coaching, the Bulls, the team wasn't really behind him.
Jim Boylan?
Sorry?
Jim Boylan?
Jim Boylan. He was running it like kind of like a college camp. And these guys are professionals. They didn't like it. So I want to see how Levine can play under a coach who's 100% behind him. Levine is a player he's a borderline all-star. He should have been an all-star last year, if you ask me. Especially since the All-Star was in Chicago. But I'm looking forward to see how he can play under Billy Donovan. The Bulls have a lot of exciting pieces. Kobe White is a guy to look for this year. He's going to get bigger and better. He's another tall point guard, 6'6", 6'7". Yeah, and Markkanen. Everyone's waiting on Markkanen to make a splash.
He needs a leap. He looked so good in his rookie season. I think the last couple of seasons, he's been a little bit disappointing. He's got crazy athleticism. He can shoot lights out. He reminds me a little bit of Dirk in his in the early 2000s, where he still had athleticism, and he was dunking on people and grabbing big rebounds, and he can block a few shots. But he's the one for me. Billy Donovan's goal should be, what can I get out of Lauri Markkanen this year? Because I think we've seen enough to say that Wendell Carter Jr. is a really good piece. He's your starting center. He's a good defender.
100%.
He's a good rebounder. Zach LaVine, like you're saying, he's a borderline all-star. But the phrase that I hear people saying about him, he's a volume scorer on a poor team. There's been a lot of these in history. Guys who you can score 25 points, but if your team's not winning, how much does it actually matter? And
it was kind of like Trae Young getting an all-star nod. Last year he's averaging 30 points, but it's on the worst team in the league.
And I think he was statistically the worst defender in the league last year.
Exactly.
Trae Young. But Chicago could go either way for me this year. It's a really tough one. I can see that halfway through the season, they're struggling and they'll try and trade Zach LaVine or a couple of these guys to see if they can get someone. But if these guys come out, I'll tell you my projected starting lineup straight away. I feel like yours might be different, but these are the guys that I think if they're playing well, they should be starting. You have Colby White, Zach LaVine, the forgotten man, Otto Porter Jr. a couple of years ago. He's on just under $29 million. When he came out of Washington, when he got traded, he was a gun, a great defender, a great three-point shooter, a little bit of creativity. Then I've also got Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. Is that pretty similar to your lineup?
Yeah, I like that team.
Yeah.
And it's just time to go with the young guys. There's no time to be playing other guys and wait around. That Kobe White is a guy who needs to be put in, given the ball, and that's his team to run. Or Otto Porter Jr., he kind of underperformed last year. I'd be happy to see him go, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he's got a very expensive contract. It's not really warranted.
Yeah, $28.5 million.
Yeah. I was looking at some trade options for him. There's a lot of noise still going around with trades in that game.
Well, otherwise you can start. He's always been a consistent player. You can swap Otto Porter Jr. out and put Thad Young in. He's the vet probably of that team. Everyone, I think LaVine's the oldest out of that group we said, apart from Otto Porter Jr. So you need a vet in there, I think, at that starting small forward position. But
Porter's starting for sure.
But when I look at that team, I see athleticism. Like White, LaVine, Porter Jr., Markkanen, Carter. I see a team that can play fast, really quick, and take advantages of some teams. And it's really, what can Billy Donovan get out of Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen this year? Can he get them to play together? Otherwise, the Bulls can make the playoffs this year.
That's gonna be his test. You have three really talented players. How far can you push them? What can you get out of them? That's his test.
I'm hoping for your sake, Serge, that they're a playoff team this year. My opinion, we'll probably go through this in a couple of weeks, but I've got them probably just sitting outside, maybe making one of the playoff games. Hopefully, again, like I was saying, some of these young teams, these guys don't get better if they don't start making the playoffs sooner or later. You need that experience.
Yeah.
You need to play 5 games.
You need to be in a system where you can thrive.
And you need to be playing 5 games against a Boston where you can concentrate after every game and go, what do I need to focus on? How do I defend this player better? They haven't had that opportunity the last couple of years.
What did we all learn from The Last Dance? Michael Jordan pushing his teams to get to the playoffs, even like dragging teams hardly into the playoffs to lose to the Celtics in 3 games. But that's how they got better.
Dragging teams, dragging people out of strip clubs in Vegas. You did it all.
Out of bed with Carmen Electra.
Ooh. All right, Serge, to finish up today, we've gone from A to C. Let's finish up with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They came last in the East last year with a 19-46 record. Their GM is Kobe Altman. Their coach is JB Bickerstaff. Their guards, Damian Dotson, Kevin Porter Jr., Colin Sexton, the Aussie Matthew Dellavedova, another Aussie Dante Exum, Charles Matthews, Darius Garland, Levi Randolph. Then the forwards, Isaac Okoro, Dylan Windler, Chetty Osmond, Kevin Love, Dean Wade, Larry Nance Jr., Lamar Stevens on a two-way, and then Andre Drummond, JaVale McGee, Thon Maker, and Marquise Bolden. They're also still paying $1.5 million of J.R. Smith's salary. Which is the funniest one. He's still sitting there looking high somewhere across the world. This is a weird year for the Cavaliers. I can't see them making the playoffs. I don't think they've got a chance of getting out of the cellar of the Eastern Conference.
I think that's like not even a question. There's no chance this team's making the playoffs.
Well, their goal this season is for me to trade all their vets away. See if someone will take a flyer on Kevin Love, Andre Drummond. Maybe I like Larry Nance Jr., but he's just getting a little bit older now. He's in his, I think, mid-late 20s, and a lot of the guys are in their early 20s. So try and move some of these guys off, get some picks, get some younger guys. I can't see them doing too much, the Cavs, this year.
I'm excited. Out of this team, I'd be excited to watch Dante. I was excited when Dante got drafted. He's had a few injuries. And, I'm always a guy supporting the Aussies. But he was a player who had a lot of upside to him.
Well, they've got a lot of – I'm looking at this roster, and they've got a lot of good guards, especially young guys. You have Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, who obviously started last year, and they're the future of the organization if you speak to anyone in the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then Kevin Porter Jr. looks really good as well. They've got Dellavedova and Exum off the bench. So their guard rotation, I think, should be pretty solid this year. Probably struggling at that small forward, power forward position, apart from Kevin Love, who'll probably be starting there. Isaac Okoro looks like a good young piece. He just came through as in the first round. I believe they played a preseason game today, and he had a really good game. He stuffed all the stats. But, yeah, Cleveland, I'm sorry to all the Cleveland Cavaliers fans that are listening. I think this is going to be a hard year for you guys, but you never know. You never know. These guys could come out. They haven't played in 8 months or whatever it is, a lot of these guys. So maybe they're raring to go. They've trained hard, and maybe we'll see a big jump from Sexton.
How many number one draft picks can you get? We can't feel sorry for Cleveland.
Exactly.
They got Wiggins.
Wade.
They got Kyrie.
Anthony Bennett.
That was a bust, Anthony Bennett.
That might be the biggest bust in history.
Dude, Anthony Bennett's like 24 and he doesn't play anymore.
No.
Or he's playing like overseas.
That's the biggest bust of all time, I think, nearly pretty close. Or Darko Milicic coming and going number one.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
But so this team, again, a lot of pieces probably going to be moved. So the starting lineup that I reckon we're going to be saying now is going to be very, very different to what it's going to be at the end of the season. But same guards starting as last year. I've got Sexton and Garland. Chetty Osmond is the small forward. I've got Kevin Love as the power forward and Andre Drummond as the starting center. Is that pretty close to what you got there, Serge?
Yeah, I don't think I could change anything from there. That's pretty clear.
No, there's a good chance those Love, Drummond, they won't be there towards the end of the season. So maybe we'll have JaVale McGee starting.
The only thing I hope changes is your fellow Aussie mate, Dante, gets a few more minutes and gets up there.
I hope so. He's one of those guys who always struggles with his shooting. He's not a natural shooter. And I kind of saw the same thing last year in a guy who's just in Detroit now who left Dallas, DeLon Wright. Shooting's just been an issue for them their whole career. And he's had a few injuries on Exum, and his shooting just keeps him off the floor. He's a very good defender. 2 years ago in the playoffs, I think the Jazz lost to Houston. He was playing some great defense on James Harden. As good as anyone could play. Really fast, really long, super long wingspan. He's a 6'5", 6'6" guard. So you can defend a lot of guys. Just hopefully he finds his offense a little bit this year. And him having a few games, Cleveland wins a few more games. So
hopefully he gets good enough so he can get traded and leave Cleveland, because Cleveland is not a fun place.
No. So 19-46 last year, last in the East. Unfortunately, I think a few teams have gotten better in the East, and I don't think anyone has really stayed pat or got worse like the Cavs have. So I apologize to Cavs fans. Hopefully I'll eat my words at the end of the season when you guys come fourth somehow. Kevin Love turns back the clock.
Maybe when you get LeBron back at age 40, maybe.
Yeah. Him and Bronny will come and play back where Daddy's from.
Yeah.
But that's all the teams are going to go through. On our next podcast, guys, we are going to run through D to I. So Dallas, Denver, Detroit, Golden State, Houston, and Indiana. Lots of fun stuff to talk about, Houston especially. And I've got a good story about one of the players from Indiana Pacers. But Serge, apart from that, stay well, man. Hope everything's all right. Hope you put on a little jumper. Or what do you guys, a sweater you guys call them over there? You're
Yeah, it's a bit
cold?
chilly.
Chilly.
I'm roughing it out for the podcast here, my T-shirt.
A little bit nipply over there.
Yeah.
But thanks again.
Wish me luck. I got my tennis playoff match this week, so
you're gonna smash it, mate. You got such a good serve on you.
So.
Make sure you tie that hair up. Thanks for listening, guys.
I got the headband.
You got the wrist ones as well?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Well, Serge, good to have a chat with you again. Thanks, guys, for listening to the podcast. The next podcast will be coming up the next couple of days, and we'll be running through some more teams and talking about whatever's happening in the NBA. Sergio, peace out, homie.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. That was sick.
That was awesome.
Yeah. But I never see. I'll stop the recording.